When Oedipus was born, it was foretold that he would kill his father and marry his mother. His father was named Laius, and he was the king of Thebes. Both he and his wife Jocasta were obviously disturbed by this news. His father decided to send the child away. He pierced Oedipus's ankles and bound them together to stop the child from crawling away, and gave him to a servant to leave on a mountainside. But instead, the servant gave him to a shepherd named Phorbas. He was raised by a king in a neighboring city as the Prince of Corinth. After he had grown, he was told by a drunk that the people who raised him weren't his real father and mother. He was walking to the oracle at Delphi to discover the truth when he was pushed out of the way by a man. In anger, Oedipus struck and killed the man, but it turned out that this was his real father. He came upon the city of Thebes and found a sphinx at the city. The sphinx was asking all the travelers a riddle. If the man answered the riddle correctly, he could continue on his journey. If he answered wrong, he would be eaten by the sphinx. The question was, what walks on 4 feet in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 3 at night? Oedipus pondered about it, and answered that a man crawls at birth, walks on 2 legs when he is grown, and uses a crutch when he gets old. The sphinx killed itself when he heard Oedipus answer correctly. The city of Thebes had just lost its king, and Oedipus had just saved the city. So naturally they offered the newly widowed queen to him in marriage. The people had no way to know that the queen was actually his mother. They have several children, who are actually his half-siblings. After several years, infertility becomes a huge problem in the city. With the crops no longer growing, Oedipus sends the queen's brother Creon to the oracle to find how Apollo could help them. Apollo says that the murderer of the former king Laius must be brought to justice. Creon then suggests to King Oedipus that the blind prophet named Tiresias should be summoned to discover the murderer. When the prophet tells him not to try to find the man who had killed the king, Oedipus threatens him. Tiresias then tells the king that he is the killer. Oedipus was irritated at this news and refused to believe it. He accused Creon of trying to steal his throne by sending the prophet to accuse the king. When Jocasta tries to calm the king by telling her of her firstborn son and how he had died, Oedipus starts to piece the story together. A messenger arrives to tell him of the king of Corinth's death. But the messenger also tells Oedipus that he is adopted. Jocasta realizes who Oedipus is and tries to convince him to stop looking for the murderer. When she is unsuccessful, she retreats into her room. Oedipus calls the shepherd who has found him into his presence to ask him about who his parents were. The shepherd eventually tells him that his parents were the king and queen of Thebes. Oedipus comes to the realization that he killed his father and married his mother. He seeks to find his wife and discovers that she has hung herself. When he sees the image of his dead mother, he uses her brooch to gouge his eyes out. Oedipus leaves the city in the care of his 2 sons, Eteocles and Polynices, and asks Creon to care for his daughters. He is exiled in disgrace with only his daughter Antigone as his guide in the Greek countryside.